welcome back to Yerushalmi Shabbos. So, although it's Thursday, we didn't learn yesterday, so we learned today. So we're praying Sheni Halacha Zayin, which is Daf Kaf Daled Amud Beis, yeah? So we're mentioning various things that you have to say before Shabbos comes in. A bit before it gets out, you should say the following. Isarten, did you take the tithes of the fruit for the meals for Shabbos? Ravten, did you do your Eruv, whether your Eruv Techumin for distances travelling, or Eruv Chatzeros for joining up all the courtyards? And Hadlikus Haneh, and light the candle for Shabbos. Now the Mishnah carries on with laws of twilight of Erev Shabbos. Safek Hashecha, Safek Eina Hashecha. So during this twilight period, between sunset and nightfall, there's a Safek day, Safek night. Ein Ma'asrin Savada, you cannot take tithes on proper tevel, which you know hasn't had tithes taken. You cannot put vessels in the mikveh. And you cannot light the candles at this time, which is during this twilight period. Of course, Havara, lighting a candle, is malacha forbidden from the Torah. And so not only you can't do various rabbinical things, like taking Maisa on Tevel is rabbinical. It looks like the Sakin. It's not proper Minah Torah. So not only you can't do the rabbinical things, you can't do the biblical things. However, you're allowed to take tithes from things which may have had tithes taken. Remember, you get fruits from ignoramuses, you don't know if they took mice or not. But ma'arvin, you can join up the courtyards, and you can cover the pots which have hot food to maintain the heat. Your hatzmana, you're wrapping up the various foods to maintain the existing situation. Okay? And Ben Hashmoshes, you're allowed to do Hatzmana. On Shabbos it's forbidden. The fourth parak will talk about how you do Hatzmana, etc. When you can, what you can't do, what you can do. Okay. So three things you should say within your house. So the laws of Tara, purity of Kodshim, and the purity of Paraduma, and making foods susceptible to receive Tumah. They're very important halachos of the Torah, but nevertheless, they were given to ignoramuses to be trusted on them. Right? To say this is kodshim and it's tahor, even the ignoramus is trusted on a thing like this. Okay? For example, they're allowed to believe to say this fruit never came into contact with liquids. They're not boki. So they're not believed to say, it never became tameh if they're not boki in Tumah Tahara. But to say the food never touched water, you don't need to be a boki in Hilchos Tumah. Therefore they're believed on things like that. Okay? Hilchos HaKodesh. So the Amei Aretz are believed about purity of Kodshim. The Tanina we've learned in the Mishnah Chagigim, Amai from Amei Aretz says to a Cohen about a barrel of wine or oil of Truma. Hifrashti b'toicha revi'is Kodesh. I set aside Revi'is halug within this liquids of the barrel to offer it up. Ne'eman, he's believed about the purity of the barrel, because he's believed about the revi'is of Kodshim, and he's allowed to believe for the whole thing. And the Cohen can receive it from him and drink it. Now they also believed ala chatais, which is the purity of the red heifer. The Tanina we've learned, hakon ne'eman ala chatais. Everyone's believed on that, on a vessel, purity which is needed for Ifapara and the waters which are in with it. And they also believed to give evidence about food that is not susceptible to receive tumah and never came into contact with liquids. The Tanina we learned al kulan, all the types of foods mentioned beforehand in the Mishnah in Machshirin, Amaris ne'emanin lema tahirin hein. So Amaris is believed to say they are tahor, they're not mushra to receive tumah. Now we said your person has to say three things before Shabbos comes in. So did you take an Eruv? Did you take Maisa? And light the candles. Light tzurcha delay. Now the Mishnah didn't have to say these three things in this order, but hadlikus haneh, light the candle, isarten, viravten, that way round, and lighting the candle after choshech is forbidden from the Torah, so you should really mention that before everything else. Because we're strict on him even with lenient rabbanos, he will be stricter with Torah dinim. Now people see that we're careful even with rabbinical things, mention them first. They don't know we should actually definitely be strict with things which are forbidden from the Torah, and we therefore make sure to light the ner before it gets dark. Incidentally, Bamei Madlikin, to those who say it in shul on Friday night, So, idea is it's reminiscent of, yes, a person has to say these three things, light the candles. The reason why we have in davening, because it talks about lighting the candles, very good. And one of the questions per should ask, we should light the candles, as we've seen here. But there are two places where Bam Madlikin is said. Some say at the beginning of the Friday night davening, Nilach HaDaidi, and some say it right later on after the Shabbos Amida. So many poskim say it makes more sense to say it at the beginning, because that's when Shabbos is coming in, and it's still Ben Hashmoshes maybe, and you can still do these things. Whereas later on is already proper nightfall. So that's why the Sfardim especially say Bam Madlikin earlier on, and not after.
What about us, the governor?
Oh, okay.
Like we missed it.
You don't bother. Chassidim don't say it. He was commanding in his house. Ravten, have you made the Eruv? Why didn't he say, have you taken Maisa? Whatever he used to eat or drink from the market, he would only buy from people who were trusted on Maisras. So he didn't have to remind everyone to take Maisa before Shabbos. We said you cannot do Maisa for Vadai. Master, the story of Rebelezer, so he was deathly ill as Shabbos was coming in. His son, goes to take off his tefillin. Remember, they used to wear tefillin all day in those days, and Horkenes is coming to take the tefillin off just before Shabbos. But Rebelezer didn't want him to do it. He says, B'ni, my son, you've left the mitzvah of lighting the candles, she's Shavuos, which is a chashash that you might be over. It's a shvus. I mean, you might end up moving the nair on Shabbos when it's burning. But chayovin alav kores, and you might come to Issa kores if you light the nair after it gets dark. It's terrible. And yet you want to move my tefillin? Big deal. Tefillin she'ein an ela reshus. Minatari you're allowed to wear tefillin on Shabbos. It's only reshus. There's no mitzvah to wear it on Shabbos, but there's no issa to put it on. Ve'ein an ela mitzvah. The chiyuv to remove it before Shabbos is a rabbinical thing, right? Now, what happened at the beginning when Rebelezer refused to have his tefillin taken off? So before Rebelezer mentioned his refusal to take his tefillin, Yatzalai, Hukanis goes out, but it's like he's screaming, he says, my father's got mad. Rebelezer says, you've got mad. My mind hasn't got mind. And then Rebelezer explains the reason for his refusal. Given Sharot Amidah, when the Talmidim saw of Rebelezer Sheyeshiva, they gave an answer. Of wisdom. They went in, they asked him questions in laws of purity. He said, what's not good is no good. And in the end, the last word he said was pure is pure. When he he died. They said, Nika Rebbe Shutar. From that they could see the fact that his soul went out with the word tar. You see that he was a pure person. And the Gemara asks why we need to Amra. You think until now, from this you see he was Tahar? Beforehand, everyone knew he was Tahar. So then the Brisa brings, Bishur, what he said about Rebelezer dying. Bishur goes and takes his tefillin off of Rebelezer. He embraces him, he's crying, he says, Rebbe, put her on neder. Remember, they put him in a ban, they put him in excommunication. The Chachmei Yisrael, when he argued against them, right? And he said, Rebbe, Racham Yisrael Pasha, the charioteer of the Jewish people, and your zchus, you do all these things. So he's saying the ban has been removed, as it were. Right? They put him in Cherem. After he died, why did they put him in Cherem? That was the story of Tanner of Achnai, right? The oven. Remember the one Babatzia? Zazan is Chaverim. Okay, so now, some learn from here you're allowed to kiss a Talmid Chacham after he dies. Because that's what happened here. Like Yosef kissed his father Yaakov. Others say, Derechla, it's not right to do this. Okay. It says someone who was put in a ban, after his death, they allowed the Nidui. If someone was put in Nidui and then died, they would stone his coffin. They put stone on the coffin. They don't do a hesped or ever. Be sure allowed the nidui, so they won't have to do a zilzal after he died. You're allowed to remove a ban after someone dies, and those dinim fall away. Okay, some say the nido went away by itself because the laws of a mace or whatever. Okay, let's carry on. With big vessels which you don't put water in them and you can't table them on Shabbos, everyone knows what your real purpose is. You can, small vessels, I need a bit of water. In the meantime, the water, keli goes in the mikvah, or mazbilan, and together with you drawing the water, the keli goes in the mikvah. So, a person can fill a vessel of water in a tummy vessel in a bar, on Shabbos, or marim alav, and he has a trickery, and he shows, well, really, I just need a bit of water. But at the same time, he puts in the mikvah. But I don't
understand that. Mikvah, you're making a new keli.
The keli is keli anyway.
But the point of tefillah
is tameh. The keli is tameh.
So you
and he must be matayah the kli.
Isn't it?
And we're saying Mario, the little vessels. Oh, I just want some water to drink, according to this opinion. I don't know if we pass it like that, but there we are. Tani we've learned. Nafal dadi ala tochapa. Your bucket fell in the pit. And nafal kelam the tochapa. And they didn't get completely covered over with water. Marim alen. Again, you have this trickery with these kelim. You show you really just want to take out some of the water. And matzbilan, and through that you can table them in the water. Right? These are kelim where it's not the derech to fill up water. And you can't cheat as if you want to fill them up. So these kelim fall into water, you can cheat. One is just to take them out of the water. Maybe these ones you don't want to fill up with water, it's not the derech, but you just want to take them out of the water. Alright. Terrain Amorim. The two Amorim argue why you're allowed to table these kelim on Shabbos through cheating. Harav, but one says the reason why it's permitted, even kelim shenitzvah ba'ava tumah, which is tamei ben Torah. But the other one said kelim shenitzvah b'vlada tumah. No, it's only a rabbinical tumah, not kelim which is tamei ben Torah. Masechet manda Amar. So they asked the one who said you can do it only with kelim b'vlada tumah, the rabbinical tumah. He asked the one who said it's allowed l'manda Amar ba'ava tumah. He says, Habai Harav shemesh. Now these kelim, if they're tamei ava tumah, you need sunset to be tahar. So you're doing it on Shabbos, you can't use it anyway till Masechet Shabbos. So we should forbid you to table it on Shabbos, even with a cheat, because you can't prepare Shabbos for the weekday. They're only going to be permitted later on. Amalei said the heter to cheat and to table these kelim avatuma, but should rise to nishtamish ben chulin b'tahara. You're eating chulin in a state of purity, and the chulin doesn't receive tumah from a keli that needs. You don't need hard sunset for that. Okay, so the keli that got in the mikvah with his cheat, you can use it for chulin b'tahara. Rav Yirmiyah, Rav Zira, Rav Shem, Rav Chia, Barashi, Isha Pikachas, a wise woman who wants to sort of clean the house a bit and, pour water on the ground to stop the dust rising. Medicha Koiskan, she can wash a cup here, or a can and a plate there, and Tamcho can, another pot here. She's washing things in different parts of the house, and meanwhile the water goes on the floor and stops the dust rising. But in my best is her base of Shabbos, in that way she is to a degree cleaning her house on Shabbos. Demai is a Rosh Teva, so it opens up the word Demai, and you get Domai, what is it? Because you don't know what is its status. It was acquired from an ignoramus. Tikin or low tikin. Was the fruit corrected or not? Were they tithed or not? That which we say you're allowed to do an Eruv Ben Hashmoshes, that's only Beruva Chatzeros. That's joining up the courtyards, yeah? The courtyards are all sort of private domains, really. They're all closed up, and they all connect onto an alley, and you put an entrance in the alley, and then you can join up the courtyards. For you to travel the distance, and you need Erev Techumin, now whether that's 24,000 amas, right? Devar Torah, and that's a Torah din, and therefore, Erev Techumin, there's no heter to do that Ben Hashmoshes. Yerushalmi holds, Minat Torah, you can't go beyond 12 mil. But Rabbanan, they forbade even 2,000 amas. Some Rishonim hold that the Babli agrees with this. Okay? So there is a reference to Issa Tchumin in the Torah. Okay, it's a tikkun, okay, whatever it is. The Bavli is mechalik between Eruv Chatzeres and Eruv Tchumin. Some say when your husband, the person asked in the household, have you taken the Eruv? It's because Eruv Tchumin, you can't do Ben Hashmoshes. Okay. Hadron alach. Now we come on to the melacha of bishul. The things which are asim in the Torah, the things which are asim in Rabbanan, which are connected with bishul, like leaving the food from before Shabbos, and there are permitted ways how you can cover the flame, etc. There's the idea of chazara, putting the food back, how it's permitted to put it back. The last part of the parak we talked about muktzah, and then using muktzah and moving muktzah. Okay, general categories of muktzah and machlokes Rabbi Yehuda and Rav Shimon. The idea of something also ben hashmashos remains forbidden the whole Shabbos. Types of muktzah, right? Different categories of muktzah, whether it's muktzah machmas kufa, or because of isur, or meals, or it's a new thing that's come about, noilad, or it's a base for something which is forbidden, or it's something set aside for his mitzvah, or maybe it's expensive, it's muktzah machmas chazar gis, or maybe a keli which is used for forbidden purposes, right? We'll come on to various dinim. And other stories include moving a keli, which is melacha laheta, right? Usually has a permitted use, and you want to use it for other reasons. And there's also gzeira of kelim, to remove a keli for the sake of muktzah. We'll talk about all that. Tiltibul hatzad, moving a loaf, through a child, or mace through a child, or mace through a loaf of bread. We'll come on to all that as well. Okay, so now, Perek Shlishi halacha aleph. Now, although in Torah you're allowed to put a pot on the fire before Shabbos comes in, and it'll carry on cooking on Shabbos. However, the Chachamim put in a gezerah. They're worried you'll come and soak the coals under the pot on Shabbos to hasten the cooking, and you'll be over the malacha of maveh. Right? So Mishnah tells me this is so in which way it's permitted. So kira, which is a type of oven, which is movable, made of earthenware. It's got an inside, and the opening is above. Okay, the opening is above, and it's got a place to put two pots at the top. So there's two holes at the top, right? So that's what we have. The other types of ovens are like kupach and things like that. So if you have used shehisikuha bekash obergavava, now if you have used as a fuel, right, sort of straw or stubble of some kind, it's the top part of the straw that's cut with the wheat. Gabava is the bottom part of the ear, as it were, which remains in the field after cutting. Some say gabava is the tiny wooden piece of wood, which are like straw. Okay. So kira shesikot b'kashra. So if you use these types of fuels, nice and allowed tafshel, you're allowed to leave the food before Shabbos, and it will just stay there, because these fuels are going to burn completely, and they're not going to become coals, and there's no worry you're going to stoke up the coals on Shabbos to carry out the cooking. If, however, begefes, if you stoked it up with the waste of olives or sesame, which the oil has come out, over eitzim, or with wood, which are not completely burnt, they become like coals. Lo yitain, don't put on it a kedera before Shabbos in order it should stay there and get cooked, because you may come and soak up the coals. Actually, yigroth, you either have to remove the coals from outside the kira, or actually yitain seifa, you put ash above to minimize the effect of the coals, and to cool them down. In these ways, you're removing your mind from cooking using this fuel, and there's no chashash, you're going to stoke it up to hurry up the cooking. Right? Now, machlekes, what you're allowed to do shehiyah of. What can you leave on Shabbos, before Shabbos, on a kira, where you have covered over the coals, whatever it is. Shammai say, from Erev Shabbos, you're doing shehiyah, you can only use chamin, hot water, which doesn't need a lot of cooking. So there's no worry, you're going to heat it up. Avaloi tafshil, but not a food that needs cooking, and we're worried you'll hurry up the cooking. Beis Hillel say chamin v'tafshil. You can put hot water and a cooked food. Even a cooked food, we know we're not worried you'll stoke it up, because you've covered up the ash, whatever, you've covered up the coals. Beis Shammai say kedera, that's permitted to leave it on a kira for Erev Shabbos, let's say hot water. Noidlin, you can take from it from the kira on Shabbos, you can't put it back. Beis Hillel they still say you can even put it back, because it's not the derech to cook on a kira, grufa, or ketuma, and it doesn't really look like cooking. Okay? Kira shesikuha. So the oven that you fueled it up with this straw, you can put a tavshil on it. What does it mean when the Mishnah says putting a tavshil? It doesn't mean you can put on the kira a tavshil on Shabbos. And the Kiddush, this is the way to read it. But Chaim allow a tavshil. You can leave a tavshil, right? You can leave a tavshil which you put before Shabbos came in. Masnisa, our Mishnah is like the view of Rabbi Yehuda. The Tanu learned in the Brayso. So Hishtei kirayim matimos. If you had like the two oven openings next to each other, and you have a wall between them, one of them, the ashes were coming over the flame. The other one, there's nothing covering the flame. You can leave a food on where the flame's been covered, but you cannot leave food on an area which has not been covered. What sort of food can you put there? The Shammai say, they argue, they hold no. You can't put anything, right? Even if you've already covered over the flame. They still say you can do hot water, but not or cooked food. Right? If you moved the water which was on the kira, everyone agrees, don't take it back to that kira. Rabbi Yehuda said, Beis Shammai say, you can leave chamin, hot water, on the kira, but not cooked food. Beis Hillel say you can keep chamin and tavshil. You can keep all these foods on the flame, right? Before Shabbos came in, where it's a hot food, or a hot liquid, or cooked food, you can just leave it on the flame. Right? So we have these different opinions. Okay. If you removed the hot water from the oven, Beis Shammai say don't put it back. Beis Hillel still say you put it back. Now our Mishnah brought various views of Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel. According to the view of Rabbi Yehuda, Beis Shammai say you can leave on an oven where the ashes are covered over. You can only leave water. Beis Hillel allow you even a cooked food. And Beis Hillel allow you to do chazara, and Beis Shammai forbid it. According to Meir, Beis Shammai forbid everything. And even Beis Hillel only allow to leave hot water, but not cooked food. And they don't allow you to do any chazara. Okay. Beis Hillel, we send the Mishnah, Beis Hillel allow you to return it. You're allowed to return to on top of the oven. But inside, they didn't allow it. Right? Within the oven, then it remains very hot, even after you've covered over the ashes, and that looks like mevasha. Ad heichan. How far within the barrel is considered on top of the kira, which is, you're allowed to put it back? Within 3 tvachim from the top. 3 tvachim from the top of the kira going downwards is considered on top of the kira. But the rest of it, the rest of the space at the bottom is considered inside. Until that line where it makes a split in the wall, you can put the pot there. They used to make a groove on the inner side of the kira in order to leave on it, let's say, a kedera for cooking, because the kederas will touch the coals and so on. So it's still considered Agabi Akira. Huh?
On the outside.
Agabi Akira means until the area where it makes a charitz, they would make a charitz on the inner side of the kira.
Attach something inside it?
In order to know, to leave a pot on it without the kederas touching the coals. See what he says here? Sounds like it wasn't permitted in Akira. How are we reading this?
He
says Mokum until. So Al Gabi Akira is the top until the area where it has this groove.
So he made a groove all the way around the top of the pot.
Yeah, maybe the top. But he says here they used to make a charitz, but Dovid Panimi. He says they had a groove on the inside. Okay. They would leave a pot for cooking. It's near the top.
Mm-hmm.
But it sounds like it would be some sort of rim on the inside.
Like a ledge that you scratch.
Oh, it's very good. Masechet Shalit. You're allowed to return the Kedera only Mokum Shayad Shaletas, where basically you can leave your hand and it won't get burnt. Bastia, that fits in Kaidamar of Yerushalmi reviewed. And Mutzil Hafshir, you can warm up on Shabbos the food by leaving it close to the fire. But Mokum Shayad Shaletas, the place where you can leave your hand and it won't get burnt. But also, however, you're not allowed to heat up the food in a place where the hand is not in control, where it's not strong, where it's not so hot. Although you're going to, let's say, remove the food before it reaches Yad Seledes, where there's Gezerah, you might forget and you'll leave it for a while. Okay? It's true about Gezerah. Excuse me. When he was a worker at Shabbos in front of Zera on Shabbos, he would bring before him tafshilin rice and hot food. Zera said, how was this made that it's so hot? He says, Tifaya, I removed all the coals before Shabbos. That's how it was made. And I put the Kedera there on the floor of the Kira to guard its heat for the meal for the night. He says, Ovid, Cain, don't do this again to leave the Kedera on the floor of the Kira. Even after you've removed the coals, the Kira is still very hot. And putting the Kedera on it on Shabbos is like Hatzmona from something which improves heat. Which is also even Mibaydian. And the Garaf Tifaya, he says, you know what? Take away the coals of the Kira, V'yahiv Tilsa, and then put in front of it kippin, three kippin on the ground. Put 3 kippin. He says here, these are bits of straw. Put 3 bits of straw. Some say they're stones. 3 bits of straw on the ground, and then put the Kedera on top of them. They shouldn't be on the proper floor of the oven. Right? It should be higher up. A tripod of some kind. Rebavo Paskin in Batsra. If you want to guard the wall of the heat, rather the heat of the Kedera of the foods on Shabbos, you should do on Erev Shabbos the following. B'male Yitzra Ramach. Fill up a piece of earthenware with hot coals. A Meitan Telasa, and you put kippin. You put 3 of these things on the hot coals. And you leave the food on the kippin, on these stones. So you put this thing down, you make it hot, and you put the pot on top. Okay, now, we said if you use the fuel for the kash and the gavava for the kira, then you're allowed to leave a kedera, but if you use the olive waste or the wood, then it's forbidden. So we speak about kira, which you use the date palms. Tania Bereda of Katina Vishem Ravasi. Shizrei Charoyos, which are spines of date palms. They have a din like Gefes Kaisim, like the olive waste and the wood. If you use them, you cannot leave the food there unless you've removed away the coals, right? Or covered away the coals. Adar table, that's what we're about to show Lachin, when these rows of date palm were still wet. The Yavshu, and then afterwards, they dried. Right, they become like coals in their burning, like the gefes and the eitim. If they were dry from the beginning, they were dry before they were cut from the decal. Then they're judged as if they're like the straw that you're allowed to return a food and leave a food on there, even without covering the ashes. But since these branches become like afer when they're burnt, they don't become coals. They like Kashim Gabama. Now, what about Akira, which you used as fuel, like animal manure? That if you fire it up with that, you need to sort of clean it out. And you need Rufak Tumavas to Tane, and some learn Kashim Gababa, they don't need a Rufak Tumah. It's it's not going to burn. You don't need to cover the flame. Man, the one who says is like wood. That is bedaka with a small animal. Man, kashu gavava is begasa with a big animal. Agoref, one who removes the coals from the oven. Achigoref kol tzaka. You have to remove them. You have to do all of them. So we can learn the answer to this question. You have to look very well for all the coals that are left. This tells me that you can't return to the kira until you remove all the coals that you need completely. Right? All the coals you have to remove. and one who covers the coals in ash, ad sheyig time. Do you have to cover all the coals, okay? Until all of it, so that the coals, won't be noticeable, or maybe just a tiny bit or whatever. So we can learn the answer from the following. Mimada tani, which we learned.
Oh, so you have to cover the coals even on Shabbos? What's he saying?
So here you're covering the coals. Do you have to cover the coals completely? So the coals, these coals, no, before Shabbos we're talking about.
Oh, okay.
So are you covering them so much that until the coals won't be noticeable, or as long as you scatter something on it, a bit of ash on it, on the coals,
to make it burn more solid,
and it's noticeable that it's going to burn less. The idea is you're going to reduce
more solid, yeah.
So now we can learn the answer for this question. In Madatani, now which we've learnt, that if you want to do with this oven, malabe Allah, you can do it. You look on the coals and the Irish piston, you put a bit of flax on the coals. Mm-hmm. And after it gets burnt, they'll be covered over with a bit of flax. Amra, this tells me you're allowed to leave the food, afidu like hatam kalsoka, even if you didn't cover them completely. And we know that this ash, which comes from this flax, is not covering the coals completely. But we say that even that's good enough. So basically we could learn that a covering of ash might be suitable. You might have to do more than this. Okay. Vaida Amrada, where was this din said? Was it said for Yom Tov Shechali Esav Shabbos? Was it when Yom Tov is a Friday? So then you can't just scatter the ash on the coals, because then we're worried about Mechaber, which is forbidden. Our Rav Shayan said, what we're doing is we're covering the coals, Malabe ala Nairesh Shal Pishtam. You put a bit of flax on it, and the flax, which gets burnt, will cover the coals with a level of ash, as it were. That's what he says. Alright. Ketama. If Venice lava. So what happened? You did cover over the ash, and then it blew up again. Mao, what's the din? You have to do it again. Reb Chia Rabba, Allah Beisa, he went home on Shabbos, and he finds food on the kira, which is like woken up again after it was covered over. But Hore Muti, Pascal was permitted. By Kurbazira Roshia, they asked Reb Chananya Chabran Darbanon, Liba the She'ava, is Reb Chia allowing the food because it was done after the Meister, or maybe even the Chatzchila, he allows you to leave on a kira where you remove the ash and it's woken up again. Does he allow you to just leave stuff there? So Gemara says, when they asked themselves this question, they were discussing it, of Rav Ami, V'idron Chabraya. Rav Ami came along, and the Chachamim scattered, they went to see him. They come and gather together, they want to go back on what they were learning. He says, Rabbi Chananya Chavrein Rabbanon. The Chaverim of the Chachamim. So, Minda Hava Uvda. The story was like this. Basically, the story which happened to Reb Chia happened with the food which was left on the kira when Shabbos came in. You can't learn it Mutach you're allowed to go ahead and do it. In fact, there was a story that happened. Right? They wanted to maybe allow it, so you can't necessarily learn from that. The question was for the future. People, they asked him, in the future, will we be allowed to be shayal on a kira which has been, the ash is covered over? Will we be allowed to leave things on it? Okay? And therefore he said it's permitted. It was an unusual question. Right? It should be completely permitted. I asked the question, in time you're going to tell me Reb Chia allowed it because it's food, the she'ava. So b'diavad, so it was, of course it should be mutter b'diavad. Why not? Why shouldn't it be permitted? I feel of bishal ala b'tchila. Even if you cook tchila on Shabbos b'shogeg, you're over Torah. The food is permitted b'diavad according to Meir, right? So definitely here the food was cooked on Erev Shabbos, and you just left it on the kira. Shehir shouldn't be any worse. If b'diavad Meir allows the food that was cooked on Shabbos, then definitely when you left the food to cook before Shabbos should be no problem. It's an Issa D'Rabbanan. Of course we should allow the food. So it can't be that Reb Chia needed to paskin that the food is permitted to be eaten because it's pasha that is permitted. So he must be telling you something else. You're allowed to leave the food. Shehiyah, right? Leave the food on a kira, even lechatchila. The tiny we learned in the Brisa, Hamavashel b'Shabbos, one who cooks on Shabbos, b'shogeg, if you cooked accidentally, yoichal, you're allowed to eat from the food even on the same day. B'mezid, if you cook b'mezid, lo yoichal, then you shouldn't eat. Right? Divrei Rameh. Rabbi Yehuda said b'shogeg, yoichal. If it's shogeg, you can eat the food, right, on Masechet Shabbos. But b'mezid, lo yoichal, don't eat the food, olam is forever. And then you have the most strict opinion. He said, "Shoigeg, if you cooked with shoigeg, yachal Masechet Shabbos. Yeah, it can be eaten Masechet Shabbos, but not you. Other people can have it, but not you. But mezid, if you cooked it intentionally, never eat the food. Not you, and not others." Shmuel, Paskin like Rabbi Yochanan Sandler. So basically, he forbade the item forever, even for others. Rav, when he was passing halachas in the group between him and thinking about cooking, however, he was passing like Rameh, who was lenient. But Tzibura, when he darshan publicly, he was strict. Because the Amorites were there, he would be strict. When Rav darshan publicly, he was passing like Rabbi Yossi, he was machmir more than Rabbi Yochanan Sandler. He held, if you're over Issa D'Oraisa, even b'shoigeg is forbidden even to others. You hear that? That's the most strict shitta. If you're over Issa Torah, it's forbidden to everyone, even b'shoigeg. The tiny words in the Bryce, Rishon Rabbi Yossi, Amon V'Shum Aviv, Kal Davar Shechayovin As Doina Kares, anything with it, by doing it b'mezid there's Kares, B'ashigigase Chatos, and doing a shoigeg b'chayv Chatos, any malach is forbidden from the Torah on Shabbos, like cooking, but also b'Shabbos, you did on Shabbos, Bain, Mezid, where you intentionally did it. Also, then the food's been for everyone, not only for you, Bein Lai, Ben Achim, and for others. Where there's no kares involved, there's no chatos, there's only asm chachamim, but asm Shabbos you do on Shabbos, but shogeg, if it's shogeg, yachal Masechet Shabbos, so you can eat it Masechet Shabbos, but only others can eat it, but not him, but Lai. But Mezid, if you did it b'mezid, then you can never have it. Not you and not for others. And they asked before Rabbi Yochanan, what do you say about food cooked on Shabbos wrongly? Which opinion do you hold? Like Armalan, he said, I only have like the words of the Mishnah in Shomers. Right? Hamaseh b'mavashel b'Shabbos, one who takes ma'aseh or cooks on Shabbos shogeg, yochal, you're allowed to eat it. Mezid, if it's done intentionally, lo yochal, then you shouldn't eat it. Yeah. Shama Rav Chisda heard this leniency, like the view of Rameh. He said, Hutra Shabbos. People are going to end up cooking mezid. They'll say, I did it shogeg. This is what everyone's going to do. Like in Amr of Chodev Shem Rav, didn't he say, Rav Chia? Okay, in the beginning, they used to say, look, if you leave a food on Erev Shabbos, a pot, Tav Shel Agabe Kira, right, and you didn't cover the ash, etc., they used to say it's not so bad. But Kachal of a Shabbos, and Shabbos comes in, and the pot is still on the flame. The shogeg, if it was accidental, yochal, you can eat it. Mezid, if it's intentional, lo yochal, you shouldn't eat it. The knas, right? You're over shehiyah drabanan. We want it to be like you're cooking on a Torah, just like shogeg, you're allowed to eat the food even on Shabbos. Mezid, you cannot eat it on Shabbos. After a while, people were suspect. They would leave the pot on the kira on Friday and leave it there for Shabbos and say mezidin intentionally by Omrim, and they say, "Oh no, we forgot. And we didn't intend to. We forgot." So then the Chacham even forbade someone who forgot. Now, what do we see? The food left on Erev Shabbos on a kira and left there by Easter is also the whole day, even b'shogeg. But Hacha Amro came here of Yechem Paskin. The one who cooks on Shabbos b'shogeg, the food is permitted, but Achida straight away. Why is he not worried that people will start saying, "Oh, we cooked it," and say, "Oh, we were shogeg," when they were really intentional? People are suspect to leave intentionally a pot on the kira on Erev Shabbos, to leave it on Shabbos because only it's Rabbanon, and people are therefore a bit more easy going with it. But like No one's going to actually cook on Shabbos and be over Issa Torah. So therefore, Konsu, they put a fine. Then they forbade a tavshil, eating Shabbos in the case of Meniach, where you left it on Erev Shabbos b'shogeg, because they're worried you will do it b'mezid and you'll say I was shogeg. But b'loi Konsu b'mevashel, there was no knas where you're cooking b'Shabbos b'shogeg. There's no worry people are going to do the b'mezid and say, oh, I was shogeg, right? No worry about that. And that's why V'yechon Paskin, the one who is mevashel b'Shabbos b'shogeg, the food is permitted straight away. Okay. I think we will stop here, Rabbi Sayah.